Hello guys, welcome to Security Red vs Blue Team channel. In today's video, we'll be discussing on system hacking basics and how to hack a system using one of the known the exploits that we have in the older version of the Windows machine. So we'll be using mainly Metasploitable here, Linux here to hack a system. So as we know, like Metasploit is like a operating system that mainly used to discover or penetrate the vulnerabilities you're using the models that we have in that is pre-built in the Metasploit Linux. So let's get started. So Metasploit basics. So if one must have to start penetrating into the any of the remote devices, so one must aware of these basics before getting started. So here may we'll be using only the MSF console, as we can use the Metasploit using other form of consoles, which is a web-based console as well. So we'll be using only the system-based console, which is the command line interface. So this is the main the CLI. It allows the testers to scan systems for vulnerabilities and conduct networking reconnaissance, which is scanning. Um, and launch exploits and many more. So all these steps can be done using the MSF console. And we have the database support as well. The Metasploit framework supports the database like mainly PostgreSQL, mainly to store the information and host the data and exploit results. And if you look at the important modules when we come across MSF console, mainly one must aware like what is an exploit, what is a payload, what's an auxiliary module, and what's an encoder, what's NOPS. And if someone needs to start a Metasploit console, which is basically MSF console, first we need to start the database. Then we need to hit MSF console in the Linux or Kali Linux OS. Then the MSF console will be started. So if you have to look at the brief of MSF modules, exploit is like a module that is used to take advantage of a vulnerability. So it's typically one paired with a payload. So payload is like a piece of code that is delivered by MSF and remotely executed on the target after the successful exploitation of the vulnerability. So example is like if you have to take the payload of a reverse shell that initiates the connection from the target system back to the remote attacker system. And next comes the encoder. Encoder is mainly used to encode the payloads in order to avoid the AV detection. The example we can take like we have a Shikata GNAI that is used to encode mainly Windows payloads. And next we have auxiliary module. This is a module that used to perform additional functionalities like port scanning and other enumeration stuff. So basically, vulnerability scanning stuff can be done using the auxiliary modules. Then we have the NOPS. NOPS is used to ensure the payload sizes are consistent and ensure the stability of the payload when executed. So these are the five important modules when it comes to Metasploit framework. So one must aware what's an exploit, what's a payload, what's an encoder, what's an auxiliary, and what's NOPS. Now let's get started with practicals. So here we are considering hacking the PC with Firefox. So here we are considering one of the known vulnerability, the known exploit that we have in Firefox, which is Firefox XPA. So this exploit mainly creates a .xpa add-on file. So it resulting in a bootstrapped Firefox add-on is presented to the victim either via web page or it can be a transfer. So the victim's Firefox browser will pop up a dialog asking if they trust the add-on. So once the user clicks the install, and the add-on will be installed and executes the payload with full user permissions. So as of Firefox 4, this will work without a restart, as the add-on is marked as a bootstrap, and as add-on will will execute the payload after each Firefox restart, and an option can be given automatically to uninstall the add-on once the payload has been executed. I think before the Firefox 4 version, it works without a restart. After Firefox 4, it needs a manual restart. So these details are available in the Google as well. We'll be sharing a reference link at the end of the video. So now what we need to do, if you need to get access to your the machine, either it's a Windows or Linux from of a target of a victim. So what one must do, open it a Linux with a Kali Linux terminal, then start the MSF PostgreSQL, then start the MSF console. So here I'll be mainly giving screenshots of some of the stuff that we have done in our lab. So here we have done we have started MSF PostgreSQL. I mean that mainly the database, and then we started off the MSF console. We can see the MSF prompt. So once the prompt is visible, then we can search. We have various methods to search any type of exploit or an auxiliary model. So here we are just using the simple search keyword, which is search space Firefox underscore XPI. In case if you want to search as per only the exploit, then we can give like search space then type colon auxiliary, or it can be exploit, then space name colon. So in these formats we can give. So we'll give the different search methods in the comment section. You can refer to that. So in our case, we are searching search Firefox XPI. So it will give what are all the details that is available. So you can see that in the beginning itself it says exploit slash. So it's an exploit. It's not an auxiliary, or it's not any other scanner or anything. So we got an exploit. So we can perform the exploit on a remote using this exploit module. So what we need to do, we can either we can check that the information on this exploit by using the info command, info space, and paste this complete exploit. So it will give the complete details. Or so you can see here, the moment you type info of this exploit, so it gives the details like what is the module name, when it is disclosed, and what's the license, and what are the options that needs to be filled. So all these details it will be given. So now if you want to use that exploit, use space and exploit name. So this is how we need to do. Use space the complete Firefox add-on module. Now once that is done, now the prompt will be changed. MSF space exploit, in the bracket it says Firefox XPI bootstrap add-on. Now what we need to do, we need to set the target. In case if we have a dedicated unique target, then in that case we need to select the native payload. So in our case, we have only one target that we need to test. In case if you have like multiple operating systems in your network, if you want to test it, then you can select universal. So in our case, I have a single target. So I'm using the so which is my dedicated target. So I'm using a native payload. Then once it is done, we need to set the payload as well. So we are mainly we are interested in getting a reverse TCP connection from that machine, from the Windows machine. So in our case, we are using Windows. So that's why I'm using a Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP payload. In case if I want to go with the Linux, you can select Linux Meterpreter reverse TCP. So in that case, we need to select whether it's a 32-bit or 64-bit machine. So based on that, you need to select the specific payload. We will be having something like Linux Meterpreter X86 reverse TCP. So something like that. So once that is done, so once we need to set once the payload is set, we need to this will give show options. The show options will have most of the parameters. Some parameters will be auto filled, some parameters needs to be manually filled. So whichever is not filled, so which is important for our task, that needs to be filled manually. In our case, we need to mainly fill the source host, which is the local host, and the source port, and what is the URI path. So basically, we'll give the root path, which is slash, and then what's the local host. So the local host is basically the system from where the target is being uh, attack is being done. So now we are setting. So we can see from the MSF console itself, we can see what is the system IP by using ifconfig, which is similar to what we use in Linux. Then we get the IP of the interface, whichever is dedicated for that server. Then set the local host using this command set space the variable name space and the value. So similarly, we need to set the port as well. Set SRV port, which is source port 80, and then set the URI path, which is basically a slash, the default path. Now we need to set the local host as well. So of course, like we don't have this parameter, so we usually set it as a global, or we just leave it blank. It's not mandatory one if the variable is not present. So once you have configured everything, what we need to do? One, now we need to do exploit. Um, Now once the exploit is done, so we started the malicious server. So now what we need to do? The victim to whom we are targeting, the victim needs to open the browser, open this URL. Then once they open the URL, they will be shown an option to um, put this add-on. Now Once they do that, they will be prompted an option to click the click button. So once they've done that, so basically an accept button, the reverse shell will be formed. So what we need to do here is like, first we need to run the exploit. Once the exploit is run, the malicious server will be started. So in this during the same time, we need to access the same browser URL which is shown here, 192.168.0.112:80. The same URL needs to be accessed from the victim machine. There, the moment it is accessed, it will give a prompt to install the add-on. So we need to accept it. So once that is done, it will successfully install all the payloads and required permissions. It'll execute it. It'll run install and it'll execute it. So once that is done, we will get a meterpreter session like this. So we'll have a meterpreter session like this. And also, um, by default the session will be exited once the session is established, so that we can see those session by using session -l. So we can see there is a one session formed with the Windows 7 PC, um, with the remote PC IP is 192.168.0.112 and the random TCP port is 49179. So we have a successful session established. In case if we have multiple Windows on the same network, access to our URL, one the HTTP URL. Then, if they try to do the install of the Firefox XPI add-on, then multiple sessions will be formed. So, in that case, you can see when the moment you type session -l, then we can see like too many sessions established. So in that case, you can switch to whichever session we want. So in our case, we tested only with the one target, which is 192.168.0.112. So we have only one session. Now what I have to do, I want to switch to that session. So what I will do, I'll give sessions space -i space one. So I'll enter into this session. So because I already have a successful session established, so now I got access to this. So now you will get a meterpreter prompt in the MSF console, Windows, which confirms you are inside the victim machine. So now we can execute the question mark to check what all options we have. So the moment you type question mark, so we'll have so many options. So you can just type simple sysinfo command to check what is the system details. So if you type the moment you type sysinfo, it will give what's the PC name, what's the OS that is used, what's the architecture, what's the language, what's the work group, and so these are all details we can check here. And there are multiple options like dumping the details, getting the file details, getting traveling through the multiple paths, basically a path traversal, and so many other stuffs can be done. So some of the stuffs which can be done will be covered in the next example. So here you can refer to the reference link that is provided here. The same will be provided in the comment section as well. The complete details on how this can be done using um, the Metasploit can be accessible from this reference link as well. So that's you guys with respect to how we can get access to Windows machine using Firefox exploit that we have. So similarly, we have so many exploits. We are just taking an example of one exploit, which is MS15 underscore 100 exploit. So we have similarly MS15 underscore 99 100 101 102. We have so many exploits. So this is basically one of the vulnerability in Windows Media Center, that when Media Center Cloud allows mainly the remote code execution and remote code execution on the Windows machine. So it mainly impacts only three kind of Windows, which is Windows Vista, which is no more currently, no more is used by in the current trend, and we have it's vulnerable to Windows 7 and some versions of Windows 8. So this vulnerability is this exploit is it will create a problem in these three versions of Windows only. Higher versions of Windows are not exploitable to these versions. So the only solution is like to upgrade to the latest version as per the solutions that are provided by Microsoft. So now let's see how we can exploit this one. So in this one, so what we need to do, first we need to load the MSF console, as we already shown. Start the PostgreSQL service PostgreSQL start, then start the MSF console. Now what we need to do, then we need to search for the exploit. We are using the simple search command, search space ms15 underscore 1100. So we have a exploit we can clearly see here. It's a name Windows exploit. Now once that is done, we have to use the exploit. We are not going for any description of uh, the exploit using the info command. So we're just using this. So just type use space and this exploit, then we will be inside that exploit. So now we can see here msf exploit ms1500 exploit. Now the moment we set any exploit, one moment we use any exploit, the first thing we need to do is we need to set the required payload. If it's a Windows machine, we need to set the corresponding Windows payload. If it is a Linux machine, we need to set corresponding Linux payload. So in our case, we are using because this is vulnerable to Windows, so it has nothing to do with the Linux. So we need to set payload Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP. So now once that is done, we need to give show options. In the show options, we will be knowing what all details are missing. So in this case, the file name, which is msf.mcl, um, um, so it's already by default it's already filled. And then we have folder name, we have file name, we have source host, source port, and we have share option. So we will be setting only the values which are relevant to us. So mainly we need to set the source IP, which is SRV host, our server IP. And then we need to set the local IP, and then we need to set the local port, and then we need to set the source port, and then we need to set the file name. So file name is already present. So for our convenience, if required, we can keep the different name. So we are just giving batman.mcl. Now once that is done, we need to run exploit. So once this is run, so it will create a .mcl file in our root msi folder, which is a hidden folder. On inside root there is a .msi hidden folder. So inside that there will be a local. Inside that there will be a file name .mcl. So in our case that is batman.mcl. So this file will be present. So now what we need to do, we need to transfer this file to the victim machine, to whom we need to attack. So now what we need, either we can directly send it, or we can ask them to access our http browser. We can put it in that, in the var html path, so that they can directly download it. So in that case, what we need to do, please share this file with your victim. That is one case. We can directly send it, or for the purpose of not sending over directly over mails or something. So what we can do, we need to start. We can start Apache in our Kali Linux, then copy that file, whatever wherever it is present, to var html path. So whenever the victim visits our server IP, basically whatever the IP is, by default it will display the contents of var html folder. So the moment we have the file in this, so they can access to the ACL file, and they can just download it. So that's the basic steps to it. So now once that is done, so once they click it, as we already ran. Yeah, so once we run the exploit, um, there will be a file called .acl. So that will be generated in the root msfi local folder. So what we need to do, we need to transfer to the remote PC. So once that is done, they need to click that file. So the moment they click that file, as we already run the exploit, so the meterpreter session will be formed. So we can see, we can use the question mark to display what are all the commands that are available by default in the meterpreter. And so in our case, so we are just showing some basic commands, like sysinfo. We can see that what's the PC and what's the OS and architecture. And using the if config, we can get to know the IP of the system. And similarly, we can use the ls command to list out all the files that are there in the remote desktop. So similarly, we can use the rm command to remove the file. And in case if you want to upload something, we can upload using the upload command. Similarly, in case if you don't want to exit from the session, we just have to put the session in the background, making the session active and running some other stuff in the Metasploit console. We just have to do background. So we'll come back to the Metasploit session. So we can. run another sort of exploit with another remote desktop, so that can be the possible. So here we will be always the sessions will be present in the background. So the moment we press sessions, it'll give the session details. It'll like 1 2 3 or whichever is the session. So we just have to access the session again using the sessions hyphen I space session id. So if I give this, we'll come back to the same victim machine that we attacked. So similarly, like there are many other commands, like important commands we can get to know from the help or question mark inside the interpreter. We have a, like a key scan underscore start. So what it basically does is like it collects all the keys that we type from the keyboard, and it collects the dump of the file, dump of all the entries, basically the keylogger logs, and it will send to us. I mean, when you say send, like we need to copy back to our local desktop. So similarly, we can stop the key scan. So many other stuffs can be done with this Metasploit framework. So that's it, guys. And so you can refer to the link that how to do this exploit from the Microsoft link that is presented here. So we'll be sharing this reference link as well in the comment section. Please do refer to both the links that will be presented. So in this video, we have mainly discussed what are the important basics that is required whenever you want to do any kind of scanning auxiliary usage of auxiliary or exploit models to pen test. So the basic modules, the knowledge one must be aware is like mainly the exploit, payload, NOPs, encoders, auxiliary models, and then we discussed like how to hack Windows machine using the Firefox bug, and then we discussed one of the Microsoft issues, that is basically a MS 15100 exploit. So we have like many exploits with the MS 15100 101 102 99 98. So you can refer to this reference link under the security updates or security bulletins page, and we can get more details on that. So thanks guys, thanks for watching the video. So we'll be coming back with we'll be soon coming back with the another practical sessions. So stay tuned to this channel. Thanks once again for watching.